Welcome back to our channel. In the heart of the Dupree estate, where wealth masked deception and loyalty was a currency, a secret erupted that no one could have foreseen. Behind closed doors, Anita stumbled upon a revelation so devastating it threatened to shatter the fragile world she thought she knew. Sharon, the seemingly untouchable sister, was facing a terminal illness, a truth meticulously concealed from everyone, even those closest to her. But the shock was only the beginning. Betrayal, manipulation, and long-buried grudges collided in a storm that would leave no soul unscathed, pushing each character to the edge of morality, sanity, and survival. Every glance, every whisper, every decision was now a weapon, and the question remained, who would survive the consequences when family itself became the deadliest enemy? Anita had always believed that control was the only thing separating her from chaos. Every movement, every breath, every word she uttered had been measured, rehearsed, perfected. The Dupree estate thrived on appearances, the gleam of polished marble, the silence of secrets buried beneath it. But that afternoon, when she lingered behind the closed door of the study, that illusion cracked. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop. Curiosity was a disease that ran in her veins as much as pride did. Yet when she heard Sharon's trembling voice through the door, fragmented, raw, unrecognizable, Anita froze. She pressed her back to the wall, holding her breath. "Not much time left," Sharon had whispered. Those words carved into Anita's mind like acid. Suddenly, every cold glance, every sudden absence, every tremor in Sharon's hand had meaning. A terminal illness. A secret guarded by her sister and Vernon, the man Anita once loved, the man who had chosen Sharon's trust over hers. Rage was the first thing that came. Not sorrow, not fear. Rage, hot, humiliating, unstoppable. It wasn't the illness that shattered her, it was the betrayal. That Sharon would hide something so monumental from her, that Vernon would comfort her in secret, that both of them would weave a world where Anita was nothing but a shadow standing outside the gate. She left the study like a ghost, moving through the hallways drenched in afternoon light. Every portrait of their family seemed to sneer at her, perfection built on deceit. The silence was unbearable. In her room, she tore open the drawers, scattering photographs, letters, old keepsakes. She found one, a picture of the three of them at the lake years ago, sunlight on their faces, Vernon's arm around Sharon's shoulder, her own smile forced, strained. That same unease now exploded into full comprehension. She had always been the outsider, hadn't she? Even before the lies, before the sickness. But anger alone wasn't enough. Anger was easy, it burned bright and died fast. What festered beneath it was confusion, guilt, and something far more dangerous, the instinct to act. She spent the night pacing, the house silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock. Each tick was a countdown. Each second reminded her that time, Sharon's time, was running out. But it wasn't pity that haunted her. It was the question of what Sharon had left behind, what Vernon was helping her hide. Money? Property? The truth? By dawn, she was certain. Sharon's illness wasn't just a tragedy, it was leverage. In a family built on power and legacy, knowledge was the sharpest weapon. If Sharon was dying, someone would soon inherit her control, and Vernon, always the quiet manipulator, stood to gain everything. Anita began digging. Not literally, not yet. But she went through Sharon's files, her safe, her locked drawers. She found prescriptions under false names, donations routed through shell foundations, hospital records disguised as business transactions. Each discovery twisted the knife deeper. Still, beneath the fury, something inside her broke. She couldn't stop thinking of Sharon's trembling hands, of the way Vernon's voice had cracked. She hated them both, and she hated herself for still caring. Days turned into weeks. Sharon's condition worsened, but she carried herself with the same poise that had always infuriated Anita. Vernon rarely left her side. They whispered in corners, exchanged looks that reeked of pity and guilt. Every gesture fed Anita's paranoia. Then one night, she saw them, Sharon leaning against Vernon, their hands brushing. It was tender, human, devastating. Anita felt her vision blur, her body trembling. In her mind, it wasn't compassion she saw, it was collusion. Two people united not by love, but by a secret they refused to share. She confronted Vernon days later, not with words but with silence. The way she looked at him, sharp, wounded, unyielding, said everything. He avoided her gaze, muttered something about respecting Sharon's wishes. That phrase became her obsession. Sharon's wishes. What were they? A will? A confession? A choice to erase Anita from everything she had helped build? That night, Anita entered Sharon's room. The air smelled of antiseptic and fading perfume. Sharon was asleep, frail but still radiating that unbearable dignity. Anita stood over her, torn between fury and despair. The medical reports she'd stolen burned in her pocket. She could expose everything, her sister's illness, her deception, her financial manipulations, and take back the empire that had been slipping from her hands. But when Sharon stirred, whispering a name in her sleep, not Vernon's, but hers, Anita froze. It was the first time she realized Sharon had never meant to hurt her. The secrecy wasn't betrayal, it was protection. Sharon had been trying to shield her, from pity, from the slow decay, from the inevitable goodbye. Anita's knees gave way. She sank beside the bed, trembling. The anger, the hatred, the plotting, all of it collapsed under the crushing weight of guilt. She had been preparing to destroy a dying woman. Yet redemption is never clean. When Vernon entered and saw her there, the misunderstanding was instant. His eyes hardened. He thought she had come to gloat, to steal, to confront Sharon in her final days. The silence between them screamed louder than words. From that moment, something irreversible began. Vernon locked her out of the estate's affairs. Sharon, though too weak to speak much, drifted between lucidity and fever, murmuring fragments of regret Anita could never answer. The house turned cold, not from weather, but from absence. When Sharon died, the reading of her will revealed the final blow. She had left her shares not to Vernon, not to charity, but to Anita, a silent act of forgiveness that felt more like punishment. Anita could no longer hate her, but she could not forgive herself either. The empire was hers now, yet it felt hollow. Every corner of the mansion whispered Sharon's name. Every decision felt like desecration. Vernon left soon after, unable to stay in a house filled with ghosts. Anita wandered the halls alone, consumed by everything she tried to control and failed to understand. She had won the war no one else had been fighting, but the victory was poisoned, the silence unbearable. Sometimes, she thought she still heard Sharon's voice, soft and distant, like the echo of a confession that had never been spoken aloud. Other times, she imagined Vernon's footsteps in the corridor, the scent of antiseptic and guilt lingering behind him. In the end, Anita understood too late that betrayal wasn't always a deliberate act, sometimes it was born from love, twisted by fear, and sharpened by pride. She had spent her life guarding her heart behind walls of control, and when those walls finally cracked, everything that spilled out was too human, too broken, too late. The gates that once protected them now loomed like a prison. And as Anita stood by the window, watching the morning light cut through the mist, she realized the truth that would haunt her forever, that the most painful secrets were never the ones kept from you, but the ones you forced others to keep. The house was silent now, but the silence was heavy, oppressive, filled with the echoes of what had been and what could never be undone. Anita wandered the marble halls, each step reverberating against memories that no longer belonged to her. Sharon was gone, her presence lingering only in the faint scent of perfume, the soft rustle of a sheet, the ghost of a laugh that had once commanded the room. Vernon had left, his absence more tangible than any shadow, she knew he carried pieces of the truth with him, fragments of secrets that might have spared her anguish, or deepened it. She had inherited everything, the estate, the fortune, the control over a legacy she had fought for and against for decades. And yet, nothing felt like victory. The wealth, the power, the meticulous order she had imposed over every corner of the house, all of it was hollow, echoing with the pain of betrayal and the weight of guilt. Each decision she had once considered strategic now felt meaningless, each triumph tainted by the knowledge that it had come at the cost of love, trust, and time that could never be reclaimed. At night, she found herself sitting by the window, staring into the darkness of the gated grounds, listening for sounds that no longer existed. Shadows shifted in her mind, blending the past with the present, until she could not distinguish between memory and imagination. She relived the day she had discovered Sharon's secret, the sharp sting of anger, the suffocating realization of betrayal, and the unbearable ache of helplessness. She remembered Vernon's reaction, the cold edge in his eyes, the silent accusations he had never voiced but that had cut through her like a blade. The estate had become a prison, not of walls and gates, but of conscience and memory. Every room contained reminders of choices she could not take back. Every hallway echoed with the laughter and whispers of those she had loved and lost. Anita understood now, in the deep, hollow core of herself, that the greatest punishment was not the absence of Sharon or Vernon, but the relentless, inescapable reckoning with her own mind. She had believed control could protect her, that knowledge could be a shield, but she had been naive. Life had a way of exposing the cracks in even the most carefully constructed facades, and she had paid the price for every flaw, every arrogance, every misjudgment. In the end, she was left with a choice: surrender to despair, or confront the haunting remnants of what had been, forging a path forward through the ruins of family, loyalty, and love. But even as she moved toward that uncertain horizon, the past clung to her like a shadow that would not dissipate. Sharon's voice, fragile yet commanding, seemed to echo in every silent corner. Vernon's absence, persistent and accusing, reminded her that betrayal and forgiveness were intertwined, impossible to untangle, and unavoidable. Anita closed her eyes, feeling the weight of the legacy, the inheritance, and the truth pressing down upon her chest. The gates that once symbolized protection now loomed like specters of judgment, and she realized that survival was no longer about control or power. It was about endurance, enduring the memories, the guilt, the anger, and the hollow victories that came with the knowledge that even the closest bonds could be shattered, and the most shocking truths could leave wounds that time would never heal.